The writer of the book of Jude, as mentioned earlier, boldly quotes verbatim from the book of Enoch in the context of prophecy. Now Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied about these men also, saying, Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000s of his saints, to execute judgment on all, to convict all who are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds which they have committed in an ungodly way, and of all the harsh things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. Nevertheless, by 500 AD, despite widespread popularity and endorsement by many early church personalities, the book of Enoch was virtually purged from the face of the earth at the hands of the satanic priesthood of the Roman Catholic Church. It is no wonder, as Tertullian suggests, that the book of Enoch was rejected by the non-Messianic Jews and not admitted into their canon. Having rejected Jesus Christ, they could never have accepted as Holy Scripture a text which so boldly testified of him long before his coming. The book of Enoch, perhaps the very first book ever written by the hand of a human being, proclaims the undisputed lordship of the Son of Man and prophesies with articulate clarity his millennial reign at the end of the age, in accordance with Jesus' own words and the teachings of the apostles. Before all other known manuscripts, the book of Enoch designates the coming Messiah as the Anointed One, the Righteous One, the Elect One, and the Son of Man. The term Son of Man is an explicit title, not a descriptor, and the one that Jesus most often used when referring to himself. And yet this term, employed as an explicit title, is nowhere to be found in the pages of the Old Testament, except perhaps on one occasion in the book of Daniel. However, it is the dominant title designated for the Messiah in the book of Enoch. When Jesus claimed to be the Son of Man, he was not saying that he was merely a Son of Man, but the Son of Man. What is the determining factor for inspired prophetic text, if not the testimony of Jesus Christ? We know that the whole Bible, cover to cover, testifies of Jesus, the Son of God, even in ways we haven't yet figured out, and is verified by the very truth of its testimony. Those who have blindly condemned the book of Enoch without reading it or weighing its content in the balance of the gospel may be surprised to discover that the revelation of Jesus Christ is the centerpiece of its message. A message which is addressed to the elect and righteous who will be living in the day of tribulation, when all the wicked and godless are to be removed. Now, regardless of mine or anyone else's opinion, the book of Enoch must be judged on the merit of its messianic content. A cursory review of some of its pages quickly discloses the nature of that content. Keep in mind as we review these excerpts that this text predates the birth of Christ and all of the New Testament epistles. And remember the words spoken to John from the lips of the mighty angel in Revelation 19. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And in that place mine eyes saw the elect one of righteousness and faith. And I saw his dwelling place under the wings of the Lord of the spirits. And righteousness shall prevail in his days, and the righteous and elect shall be without number before him, forever and ever. And I heard the voices of those four presences as they uttered praises before the Lord of glory. The first voice blesses the Lord of the spirits, forever and ever. And the second voice I heard blessing the elect one, and the elect ones who hang upon the Lord of the spirits. On that day mine elect ones shall sit on the throne of glory, and shall try their works, and their places of rest shall be innumerable, and their souls shall grow strong within them when they see mine elect ones, and those who have called upon my glorious name. Then I will cause mine elect one to dwell among them, and I will transform the heaven, and make it an eternal blessing and light. And I will transform the earth, and make it a blessing, and I will cause mine elect ones to dwell upon it. And there I saw one who had a head of days, and his head was white like wool. And with him was another being whose countenance had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness, like one of the holy angels. And I asked the angel who went with me, and showed me all the hidden things concerning that Son of Man, who he was, and whence he was, and why he went with the head of days. And he answered and said unto me, This is the Son of Man who hath righteousness, with whom dwelleth righteousness, and who revealeth all the treasures of that which is hidden, because the Lord of the spirits hath chosen him, and whose lot hath the preeminence before the Lord of the spirits in uprightness forever. And this Son of Man whom thou hast seen shall raise up the kings and the mighty from their seats, and the strong from their thrones, and shall loosen the reins of the strong, and break the teeth of sinners. And he shall put down the kings from their thrones and kingdoms, because they do not extol and praise him, nor humbly acknowledge whence the kingdom was bestowed upon them. And at that hour that Son of Man was named in the presence of the Lord of the spirits, and his name before the head of days, yea, before the sun and the signs were created, before the stars of the heaven were made, his name was named before the Lord of the spirits. And he shall be a staff to the righteous, whereon to stay themselves, and not fall. And he shall be the light of the Gentiles, and the hope of those who are troubled of heart.
And Simjaza was their leader, and said unto them, I fear you will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon.
So it looks here as if they taught mankind evil, lies, greed, war, battle with each other, and the sword, every twisted thing in disharmony to the order that the Most High had made according to the text.
And Enoch went and said, Azazel, thou shalt have no peace. A severe sentence has gone forth against thee to put thee in bonds, and thou shalt not have toleration, nor request granted to thee, because of the unrighteousness which thou hast taught, and because of all the works of godlessness and unrighteousness and sin which thou hast shown to men. Then I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid, and fear and trembling seized them. And they besought me to draw up a petition for them, that they might find forgiveness, and to read their petition in the presence of the Lord of heaven.
So let's recap this thing real fast. If I'm understanding correctly, these things, these beings, they're servants in dimensions of eternity well above us, and God himself, the creator of everything, he decides he's going to birth children. And these servants are explained to, you're going to have to, just like you serve me, you're going to have to serve my children. And Lucifer, and a third of the angels, apparently, we're not having, that ain't happening. Right? And so this creates a conflict, boom, in the heavenlies. And these guys, they get subjugated. We really don't know how that, how would we know how that works? But anyhow, they're to the side, and they make entrance to this place. If I recollect the words of Jesus Christ, which are very critical, maybe here at this point, he says, what you bind on earth is bound in heaven. What you loose on earth is loosed in heaven. So the two are intertied in ways that we really don't understand. But we'd made some kind of a choice at the beginning, in the Garden of Eden story, to give something entrance and dominion. And these things that came in, not only are they, they're trucking in, and not only they're saying, hey, we're taking what we want here, but also, we're in charge, and we're going to have our own kids. That's what they're doing. So not only do they hate you, these things want to be you. And Enoch, they run into some kind of problem with this. They're not able to zip in and out of wherever they, however this used to work, where they could just seamlessly go in and out of somewhere. Suddenly they're running into a friction.
And from henceforth you shall not ascend into heaven unto all eternity.
If I'm understanding this, and all of a sudden, Enoch, notice you've got a good relationship with the Most High over there. Think you could put in a good word for us? And here's Enoch. He actually he actually does it.
And the Lord said unto Michael, Go, bind Simjaza and his associates who have united themselves with women so as to have defiled themselves with them in all their uncleanness. And when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of judgment and of their consummation, till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated.
But this is amazing. He's got the courage to march into this whole group of these things that have now got their own offspring. And this is what he's going to tell them.
Then I wrote out their petition and the prayer in regard to their spirits and their deeds individually. I wrote out your petition, and in my vision it appeared thus, that your petition will not be granted unto you throughout all the days of eternity.
The flood came along, and it wiped them all out. Now there are 277 official flood stories from cultures around the world, if I'm reading the numbers correctly. History Channel claims there's 2,000, but any way you cut it, there's a bunch of flood stories, all of them with a man surviving with his family on a boat of a global flood. Take that back. All of them except one. The Sumerians claim that their gods went up and came back down after the flood. Dave, you know anything about that?
Yeah, what the Sumerians called the Anunnaki, in the Word of God they were called the Enochim, and these were another of the races of the giants that were the product of fallen angels cohabitating with human women.
And until then I had been prostrate on my face, trembling, and the Lord called me with his own mouth, and said to me, Come hither, Enoch, and hear my word. And one of the holy ones came to me and waked me, and he made me rise up and approach the door, and I bowed my face downwards. And he answered and said to me, and I heard his voice, Fear not, Enoch, thou righteous man and scribe of righteousness. Approach hither and hear my voice. And go, say to the watchers of heaven, who have sent thee to intercede for them, You should intercede for men, and not men for you. Wherefore have ye left the high, holy, and eternal heaven, and had lain with women, and defiled yourselves with the daughters of men, and taken to yourselves wives, and done like the children of earth, and begotten giants as your sons?
Now I'm reading from Numbers 13:33, which says, And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which were of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers before them. And not coincidentally, but
Go declare to the watchers of heaven who have left the high heaven, the holy eternal place, and have taken unto themselves wives, Ye have wrought great destruction on the earth, and ye shall have no peace nor forgiveness of sin. And inasmuch as they delight themselves in their children, the murder of their beloved ones shall they see.
Following the exodus of Egypt, they were definitely, this group, the Hebrews, were definitely the underdogs, and favor would be on them nonetheless, leading, of course, the grand spectacle, giant battle sequence of David and Goliath.
And over the destruction of their children shall they lament, and shall make supplication unto eternity. But mercy and peace shall ye not attain.
And then from there, Jesus Christ, who said amongst other things, Behold, I give you the power to tread on serpents. And for God so loved the world, God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that none should perish, but that all, meaning every race, creed, color, everybody on the face of the planet Earth, none should perish, but that all should have eternal life. But simultaneous to this, in the ancient world, it appears that there was somebody bopping around from place to place with a different message.
They call them Chitauri, children of the serpent. The royal kings of Africa claim descent from serpent gods who came from the sky. In South America, the Mayans teach that their ancestors were the people of the serpent. Aztecs were said to be created by a serpent woman.
So if I'm understanding our ancient records properly, after this flood, everybody spreads out and pyramids begin to rise all over the globe.
In America, the Hopi Indians believed sky gods came to Earth to breed with their women and referred to them as their snake brothers. The word Sioux means snakes, and Iroquois means serpents.
A lot of these cultures even go darker than that into mass human sacrifice to their gods. And mind you, not only are they not telling these god stories like myths, but they're drawing hieroglyphic representations that are eerily similar to each other. And it's almost as if somebody was zipping back and forth. And this was their message. We're in charge, and you can thank that to the snake.
At that time I beheld the Ancient of Days, while he sat upon the throne of his glory, while the book of the living was opened in his presence, and while all the powers which were above the heavens stood around and before him. Book of Enoch, chapter 47, verse 3. Since the English translation in the 1800s from Ethiopia in 1768, this book has been created quite a stir in academic circles, and Enoch has been authenticated as existing and in wide use before the church age. Now, most scholars date it to around 200 BC, but mainly I think they come about it with that number because of the Dead Sea Scroll find. And of course, if we found something even older with fragments of the Book of Enoch, they would date it back even farther. So before the Dead Sea Scroll find, they actually dated it to early Christian history because of some of what was written in the Book of Enoch, which clearly pointed to Jesus Christ. And of course, they don't believe in prophecy. They're just secular historians. So of course, it couldn't have been from before Christianity until we found the Dead Sea Scrolls. And oh, whoops, I guess it was before Christianity. Well, it couldn't have been all the way back to the beginning of time. So just 200 BC. You see kind of the logic trail of some of these historians. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to indicate that. That's why they put it in the pseudepigraphia, is because they don't trust it. It's called lack of faith. They don't believe in it because they don't have any proof. They're sort of doubting Thomases, as you can see. But we see that obviously this book clearly points to Jesus Christ. It tells of the fall. You can see why the devil might not want people to read this. I mean, it makes well known what's going on and what the truth is. According to the Book of Enoch, God judged the angels for producing the Nephilim. God decreed that the fallen angels or watchers were to be cast into Tartarus. We see that in Peter. The Nephilim were also judged, and it was determined that their bodies were to return to the earth in peace, but their souls were doomed to wander the earth forever as wandering spirits. This is where we get demons from. Demons and ghosts are essentially the disembodied spirits of these half fallen angel, half human hybrids. Now, according to the Book of Jubilees, 9/10 of them were thrown into Tartarus because they were going around killing people. If you can imagine spirits killing people, they were doing it. So the most evil of them were put into Tartarus, and God only permitted 1/10 of them to remain on earth. And those 1/10 are the ones we know today as spirits and ghosts and demons and things of that nature. Now, what other evidences do we have for Enoch's authenticity? The idea that Jesus said that angels cannot have sex is a very common objection to the Book of Enoch and the angelic understanding of Genesis 6 in general. However, it is also a very common misinterpretation of what Jesus actually said. In reality, in Matthew 22, verse 30, Jesus was really referring to fallen marriage or earthly marriage. He was not referring to sexuality, and he wasn't referring to heavenly marriage. Obviously, in the end times in Revelation, we go to the marriage supper of the Lamb. If there were no marriage in heaven whatsoever, there wouldn't be a marriage supper of the Lamb, if you can understand. So, what Jesus was referring to was earthly marriage, not heavenly marriage. And this is where people misunderstand the concept of Jesus saying there's no marriage in heaven. Okay? So, that's usually just a misnomer with that understanding of theology. It is usually noted first, the New Testament author Jude directly quotes 1 Enoch, "Behold, he comes with 10,000 of the saints to execute judgment." 1 Enoch 2 and Jude 14, or verses 14 to 15. Additionally, the citations of Enoch by the testaments of the 12 patriarchs show that at the close of the 2nd century BC and during the 1st century BC, this book was regarded in certain circles as inspired. Aside from Jude, Peter, and Paul's affirmations of the angelic hybrid interpretation, recognition of 1 Enoch is given amply in the Epistle of Barnabas and in the 3rd century by Clement of Alexandria and Irenaeus. And also Origen, known as the father of theology, affirmed both the Book of Enoch and the fact that angels could and did cohabitate with the daughters of men. He even warned against possible angelic and or Nephilim infiltration of the church itself. Oddly, while thousands of writings are still considered by them as sacred, this very issue got him labeled as a heretic when the faulty sons of Seth doctrine was conceived. Additionally, the Coptic Orthodox churches of Egypt still include Enoch as a canonized text in the Ethiopic Old Testament. This fact alone should carry great weight for Western Christians when honestly studying the case for Enoch, given the 1900-year-plus history, the fact that they were never ruled by Rome's theology, and that they currently number over 10 million. This is a very significant portion of the body of Christ that historically esteemed 1 Enoch as inspired doctrine. Some today claim that most major themes of the New Testament were in fact borrowed from 1 Enoch. It appears that Christianity later adopted some of these ideas and philosophies from this book, including the final judgment, the concept of demons, the resurrection, and the coming of Messiah in the Messianic kingdom. No doubt these themes are major parts of 1 Enoch and appear there as complete theologies a full 200 years before any other New Testament writings. Christian author Stephen Quayle writes, several centuries before and after the appearance of Jesus in Jerusalem, this book had become well known to the Jewish community, having a profound impact upon Jewish thought. The Book of Enoch gave Jews their solar calendar and also appears to have instilled the idea of a coming Messiah would be someone who had pre-existed as God. Translator R.H. Charles also stated that the influence of 1 Enoch on the New Testament has been greater than all of the other apocryphal and pseudepigraphical books put together. The conclusions are somewhat inescapable given Enoch's dating and wide acceptance between 200 BC and 200 AD. Either Christian authors, and especially the Nicene Council, did plagiarize their theology directly from Enoch, or the original version of Enoch was also inspired. James H. Charlesworth, director of Dead Sea Studies at Yale University, says, in the Old Testament pseudepigraphia and the New Testament, I have no doubt that Enoch groups deemed the Book of Enoch as fully inspired as any biblical book. I am also convinced that the group of Jews behind the Temple Scroll, which is surely pre-Qumranic, would have judged it to be quintessential Torah, that is, equal to and perhaps better than Deuteronomy. Then we should perceive the pseudepigraphia as they were apparently judged to be, God's revelation to humans. Perhaps the most telling argument for 1 Enoch's inspiration may well be that the Jewish understanding of the term Son of Man, as the messianic title comes, not truly from our Old Testament canon, but from the Book of Enoch. Ever wonder why Jesus refers to himself in the Gospels as the Son of Man rather than the Son of God? Of over 100 uses of the phrase Son of Man in the Old Testament, it refers almost always to normal men. 93 times specifically of Ezekiel, and certainly not as Messiah, but is used only one time in the entire Old Testament in one of Daniel's heavenly visions to refer to divinity. Despite the Old Testament's frequent lack of divine application of the phrase, 1 Enoch records several trips to heaven using the title Son of Man unceasingly to refer to the pre-incarnate Christ. Of particular messianic significance, Enoch describes the following scene. The angels glorify with all their power of praise, and he sustains them all that act of thanksgiving while they laud, glorify and exalt the name of the Lord of spirits forever and ever. Great was their joy. They blessed, glorified, and exalted, because the name of the Son of Man was revealed to them. 1 Enoch, chapter 68, verses 35 through 38. Both his disciples and especially the Sanhedrin knew what Jesus was claiming 84 times in the Gospels when referring to himself as the Son of Man. This claim was considered an obvious blasphemy to the Pharisees and Sadducees, but it is eternal life to all those who confess that Jesus of Nazareth was and is the Son of Man, the Messiah, God in the flesh, the Holy One of Israel, God's Christ, the Lord of all, to whom every knee shall bow. Philippians 2, verses 8 to 10.